Hello 8th grade, this is lesson 1.4, chapter 1. Please make sure that you write these notes down. The learning target for today is to be able to solve little equations for given variables and convert temperatures. Alright, so if you have to press pause, please make sure you press pause and then we can move forward, okay? So, question number 1, please make sure you write this down. What we are trying to solve for is we are actually trying to solve for this letter y. Okay, so we want to isolate that y all by itself. Basically, we want to get y equals and then a bunch of information over here. So how do we do that? Well, we're going to do one thing at a time. So to make sure that we get y by itself like this, that means we want to remove this whole thing right here. Now, a really good question is, well, what we've been doing so far is the opposite of multiplying 2 over 5 is dividing by 2 over 5 and so forth. But what the problem with that is you are separating these two into different units, and we don't want to do that. We want to keep them together as one big piece. So when we do that, we're actually going to be doing either addition or subtraction. So let's ask ourselves, is this a positive 2 over 5x or is this a negative 2 over 5x? Well, it's a positive 2 over 5x. So if we want to move it to the other side of this equation, we want to do, let's erase this so we can see it. We want to do minus 2 over 5x. We're going to cross this off, right, because we did on one side. Now here's the question, can we do minus 2 over 5x over here? No, we cannot. Why can we not? Because this does not have an x. If it had an x, we could do that. But because it doesn't, they are separate and we cannot combine them. They're not like terms. So what ends up happening is you're going to take this and basically you're just going to squeeze it in right there. So our new equation is going to be, I'm going to drop this down over here. I have y. I'm going to drop down this equal sign over here. And you know how we said we just squeezed this in right here. So what do we have? We have negative 2 over 5x. So we have negative 2 over 5x. And then here's my next question. Is this a positive 7 or a negative 7? That is a positive 7. So it is plus 7. All right, let's try another one. Let's see. Here we go. Again, we want to solve for the letter y. We want to isolate that variable. So to do that, we want to get rid of this first. And we want to move it on this side somewhere. So we're going to move the whole thing. So when we move the whole thing, it's either going to be a positive operation or a negative operation. My question is this positive or is this negative? Well, it's positive. So what we want to do is we want to do the opposite of positive, which is going to be subtract. So we're going to subtract 4x. We're going to cross this off. And what you want to do is, does this have a 4x over here? No, it does not. So that means all we are trying to do is squeeze it in wherever we can. So I'm going to squeeze it in on this side. It's going to make a little bit more sense in the next chapters. So I'm going to rewrite the problem. We have, what do we have over here? We have minus 4x. This is a positive 24, so plus 24 equals 6y, right? Now we want to get the y by itself. We want to get just this y by itself. How do we do that? Well, what operation do we have right here? That is going to be multiplication. So what is the opposite of multiplication? It is division. So we're going to divide by 6 on this side, right? Then we're going to divide this by 6, and then we're going to divide this by 6. So let's solve this fraction first, because I think we can solve this. What is 24 divided by 6? Well, or how many times is 6 going to 24? We know that answer is 4. All right, I'm going to drop that down. I'm going to drop down this equal sign with this y. And then we just got to simplify this. Now, most of the rest of this chapter, you're probably going to be dealing with fractions like this, okay? So that's what we want to do. So now let's just simplify. Is there a number that can go into 4 and 6? Yes, 2, right? So I'm going to divide by 2. Let's put that in black. Divide by 2, divide by 2. So what is 4 divided by 2? Well, that's 2. Don't forget to drop your negative. And then 6 divided by 2 is 3, and don't forget to drop your x. So now you have your answer of negative 2 over 3x plus 4 is equal to y. Let's try another one. Here we go. Again, we are trying to isolate this specific variable. We want to get this y by itself. So to do that, we want to get rid of everything else. I'm going to start off with this first. Okay, so what is the opposite of this 5x? Is this a positive 5x or a negative 5x? It's a positive. So the opposite of a positive is a negative 5x. I'm going to subtract that. Boom. Whatever you do on one side, do it to the other. So basically this does not have an x, right? So we're just going to squeeze it in. I'm going to take this, squeeze it in right there. So let's drop this down. We now have negative 1/2 y. We just squeezed that in over there, so we have negative 5x, and that's a positive 3 plus 3. I'm gonna erase this. I'm gonna move this real quick. Alright, so now we have this equation, and we want to solve for the letter y, right? We want to solve for the letter y. So how do we get that y all by itself? We have a multiplication problem here. What is the opposite of multiplying by 1/2? That's going to be dividing by 1/2, negative 1/2, right? I'm going to cross that off. And now we're going to have to divide each one of these by negative 1/2 and divide this by negative 1/2. Now, we learned earlier on in this chapter that we don't like to do fractions like this, right? We have to do it horizontally. So I'm going to zoom in and just kind of break these down into smaller problems. So I have negative 5x, right? And it was divided by 1/2, right? That's the problem. And then I had plus 3 divided by 1/2. Well, ladies and gentlemen, how do we divide whole numbers and fractions? Well, we're going to put this over 1, change that to a multiplication sign, and then we're going to flip the second fraction. So we actually have negative 5x over 1 times 2 over 1, right? And then we have plus 3 over 1 times 2 over 1. Now we just got to multiply straight across, right? Negative 5 times 2 gives you negative 10x over 1, or just negative 10x, right? So we're done with that. And now we have 3 times 2 gives you 6 over, was that a negative 1/2? It was a negative 1/2, right? So we have, that was negative 1/2. So we have negative 6 over 1, or we just have negative 6. Let's drop down that equal sign right there. And we drop down that y, because that's what's left over. So our answer for this problem is y equals negative 10x minus 6. The more we practice this, the more it's going to make more sense. So we're just going to keep on going and trying out what we can do. All right, let's try another one. Let's try this one right here. We want to get the y by itself. So how do we do that? We are going to do the opposite of this x. Remember, there is an invisible answer here, number here, and that is actually 1. Let's put that in different colors so we can see it. So there's invisible 1. Why is there invisible 1? Well, because that's 1x. How many x's do we have? We have 1x. So what's the opposite of just a positive 1x? Well, that's a negative 1x. We're going to cross that off. Whatever you do on one side, do it to the other. So we're just going to squeeze it in. So I have negative 1x plus 6 pi equals 2y. Now the last thing, all we need to do is divide 2, right? We want to get that 2 all by itself, because that's 2 times y. The opposite of 2 times y is to divide by 2. Don't forget to cross that off. Divide by 2, divide by 2. So there's nothing to solve here, so this just stays the same. So we now have negative 1 over 2x. But we can simplify here, ladies and gentlemen. I can actually simplify this. 6 divided by 2 actually gives you 3 pi, and then drop down the y. So you get y equals 1/2 x plus 3 pi. Also, ladies and gentlemen, you can also, if you wanted to, you can take this y and then put it on this side, and you can move the equal sign. It's the same thing if you did it like this, okay? And this would be your answer. Let's try another one. Alright, so this time it says we want to isolate just the letter r. It's in bolded letters. If you can't tell, I'm just going to color it in the letter blue. That means we want to get the r by itself. We want to get an equation that looks like r equals. Okay, so how do we do that? I'm going to leave that here at the bottom. R equals. So to get that by itself, we want to get rid of this. How do we get rid of something? When I say get rid of, that means we want to move it to the other side. So how do we move it to the other side? What you want to do is you want to do its opposite. So what is the opposite of adding c? That's going to be subtracting the letter c. Don't forget to cross it off. And there's no c on this side, right? So there's nothing to do, so you just got to squeeze it in somewhere. So you now, let's drop that p down. You got p, and you have minus c equals r. So there we go. We got our answer. R equals. Your answer is p minus c equals r. Let's try another one like this. So this time we want to isolate this letter x, right? We want to get this x by itself. How do we get that x by itself? Well, we want to get rid of this thing right here. When I say get rid of, that means we want to move it on this side. And when we want to move it to that side, we want to do the opposite. So what is the opposite of what we are doing to the letter n? Well, the opposite of dividing by n would be multiplying by the letter n. And if you do it on one side, you got to do it to the other. So now we're just going to have n times p. And another way to write that would just be n p. Well, actually, this would actually be p n, because when we multiply this, this actually scoots over this way, and you fit in the letter n this way. But then again, they're both the same. They'll give you the exact same answer. So we actually have np or pn, however you want to call it. Drop down your equal sign, and you have the letter x. And I believe that is our last question. We will do some more practice on this tomorrow, but I hope you guys understood the lesson. See you all tomorrow. Bye bye.